Hardeep Singh Brar, President and CEO of BMW India, joining me. Mr. Brar, thank you very much for taking the time out and joining us here on ET Now. Let's begin with where we see ourselves at the moment, the festive season, of course. How is that looking like for you? And more importantly, given what we've recently seen with the policy push as well, is it more reasons for what consumers are looking at this point?
Firstly, thank you for being here. And coming to your question, yes, GST has brought in a much required relief for the market. I think the market was struggling ever since last year. There were elections last year, a lot of IT layoff, and the government investment took time after the government came into picture. And this year again started with, US unsettling the rest of the world. Then also the tariffs on top of that, IT was continued, but I think GST has brought in much needed relief now. And there's been a lot of buzz ever since the GST 2.0 has kicked in. And we could see the growth rates to the tune of 40% in September, while we had only 9 days, mind you. And the momentum continues even in the month of October. And the booking growth rates are to the tune of 40%. So very, very positive initial sentiments. Of course, it is also because of those 37 days between 14th August when it was announced and 21st of September when it actually got implemented. So a lot of consumer from those 37 days are also pouring in this time, which is why the growth rates look abnormal. But still, if we look at the long-term growth rate story, would be much better than what it was prior to the 14th of August when the GST 2.0 was announced.
And that is interesting for this sector, isn't it? Because what we were looking at before the policy push actually came through.
Yeah, of course. As I said, the sentiments were very, very weak prior to that. And now the sentiments have completely turned. And when you look at from a luxury viewpoint, when the prices have gone down by almost 6 to 6.5% on an average ticket price of almost 80 lakhs to 1 lakh, 80 lakhs to 1 crore rupees, it's a straight benefit of 5 to 6 lakh rupees, which is very, very significant, which is bringing in a lot more consumers now.
When you talk about the luxury car segment and the consumers today, are they more aspirational or more accessible in India today? How are we looking at the sector overall?
Yeah, so, you have both the ends. At the lower end of luxury, the price gap between the mass premium and the luxury is closing down. There are a lot of buyers at 25, 30 lakh rupees. We started about almost 45 lakh rupees. So to bridge that gap of 15 to 20 lakhs, when you have an great financing offer, it's not very difficult. So you have this consumer who's aspirational but also wants accessibility, while at the other end of this chain where the cars are north of 2 crore rupees, of course that is purely aspirational. They want to get the best of everything in their cars, and which is why the aspirational quotient is far bigger. They don't mind spending extra 10, 15 lakhs, but they don't want to compromise on any feature which is not there in their car.
And that's a very interesting point that you make. Today, consumers are far more aware. They know what they want. Anything that really stands apart when you're looking at these kind of, let's say, the emerging consumer in terms of certain sectors or what they're looking at? Something that we've not seen in the past 5 years, perhaps?
I think the startups is a big sector. A lot of people from startups, although these founders, promoters, which are very young, late 20s or early 30s, they are the ones which are really getting onto this bandwagon. Of course, the younger generation, the Gen Z, from our generation, we were all about investments and savings. The next generation, they are far more liberal. And when you look at Gen Z, they don't want to save. They just want to buy stuff, to fulfill the needs which they have, and be it cars, be it watches, be it perfumes, they're all moving, and they are all on a spending spree, which was not the case if you look 5 to 10 years back.
Absolutely, but when you're talking about luxury penetration in India, right, it remains relatively low, of course. There is a little bit of that particular gap to kind of bridge it. What do you think is required, number one? And more importantly, how do you think that's going to evolve?
I think I partially answered it in my past question that you asked. This demographic shift, the desire of consumers to enjoy finer things in life, which is a big shift which is happening. Of course, COVID has also triggered it. And I see, right now, the luxury market is about 1.1% of the overall automobile market, while we are number 3 in terms of auto market, but when it comes to luxury, I think we'll be trailing far behind. We at BMW are now from the rank number 30 globally. We have moved into the top 20 markets now. And I feel by 2030, this 1.1% should go anywhere between 1.5 to 2% of the market, which will be a huge jump, because by that time, auto industry will also move to maybe 5.5 to 6 million.
Right.
So if all goes well, we can look at 100,000 units in the luxury car market by 2030, which is only about 50,000 units today.
You know, talking about the fact that there is that sort of vision for the next couple of years, and also considering we've spoken about and rather touched base about what Indian consumers really want, there are, of course, certain models that continue to do really well for the company. Does that still stand, or are we looking at different preferences that have evolved right now?
We are doing well across all segments. For example, i7, which is our most iconic product, which is north of 2 crores, is doing extremely well, and there's a huge demand for that. Even at the entry level, because as I said, the price gap between the mass premium and the luxury is now kind of catching up. We are seeing a very strong demand for our iX1, which is the electric model that we launched at a very attractive price of less than 50 lakh rupees. That's getting the rave reviews. And we had a waiting period of 2 months on that. It has gone up to almost 3 months after the GST announcement. While there has been no change, it remains 5%. But just the whole euphoria in this segment is actually bumping up the numbers for this particular car.
Mr. Bharat, there has been a lot of conversation about the EV segment, right? And it is exciting, not just for the company perspective, but also for a consumer. While we talk about that, there are, of course, many choices in the market as well that you see. And moreover, for the automobile sector, do we look at some pain points there, or do you say it's a positive story throughout?
No, I wouldn't say it's a positive story, while it is a very positive story for us, and I'll come to that later. While, there are 3 big factors which play on consumers' mind. One, of course, there is a price parity issue between ICE and BEVs, or the EVs. And the BEVs are more expensive than the ICE, and consumer feels, why should I pay whatever 15-20% more for the BEVs? Why can't it be at par? The charging infrastructure is the second problem, because the range anxiety is there. And even if you look at the mass market, the range is about 200-300 kilometers, which causes the anxiety. But when we look at BMW, we are today we have the highest penetration of electric vehicles in our portfolio versus anybody else. We are at 21% today, whereas the market is only 3.5%. Now, what have we done that the percentage is so high? We have actually solved for the price parity issue. Today, our electric models are at par, or even in some cases cheaper than the equivalent ICE model, which is not seen anywhere. All the electric models, the range is north of 500 kilometers. So even if you don't have charging infrastructure, people still don't have that anxiety that, how will I go back from point A to point B? So this is what is really helping us. And, the government had mission of 30% by 2030. I think BMW will be the only brand to achieve that 2030 mark 3 years ahead of times, and we will be 30%. So we are 21%. Today, I think we'll surely be 30% by 2027. So it's a very, very positive story for us. So if you play the EV game well, I think there's no way that you can actually lose.
And there's no stopping BMW as well. Let's also talk about the fact that what has happened for the company previously with the plant Chennai, and more importantly, the Make in India story that we're looking at, right? And how the automobile sector, in tandem with what this is meant for BMW, how are we looking at that? While right in your opening remark, you also spoke about tariffs. There's so much of uncertainty. But of course, we're hoping for that to come through between the nations. But all in all, there are so many changes that are happening, headwinds that are happening. How are we looking at this?
So in terms of plant, we have a production capacity of 50,000. We are currently producing, last year we did 15,000. This year we will grow by a strong double digit. So we'll still have quite a bit of capacity which is available with us. I don't see that as a problem. The only thing we need to see is when do we move from one shift to the second shift? Should we just go for extended hours? So I think we are pretty sorted on that front, and I don't see that as a problem, even if we want to increase by another 15 to 20% next year. I don't see that as a problem.
All right, so no challenges on that front.
No, not
but
at
Mr.
all.
Brad, let me come to the next question, given what it means for BMW in different markets, right, in terms of cities as well, whether you're talking about Tier 1, Tier 2. Have you looked at that really shift? What does that say about today's consumers as well? And has any city, or rather, let's say, in terms of categories, surprised you for the appetite that, consumers have today?
Of course, I think as you get into the smaller towns, so whether you go to Bangalore or you go to Jaipur or Lucknow, we are seeing a far bigger growth in these markets, which is about 4 to 5% better growth rates than rest of the markets. And yes, the growth is going to come in future from Tier 2 to Tier 3 because that's where people are now tasting the luxury and they want to really indulge in that. And for that, we need to get closer to the consumers. You need to have a service point for any kind of issues. You want a strong sales point so that people can touch and feel those brands, because if you have to travel 100 kilometers for your service or to really experience these cars, there's a bit of apprehension. So that is one of the strategies that we will work on. We are today present in about 35 cities, and going forward by next year, we want to touch 50 cities so that people can actually, touch and feel our cars and become our consumers.
All right, and all in all, it looks like a great, vision that is there for the company. Yeah. But talking about numbers, the kind of outlook that we're looking at over here, anything that you would like to tell us on that front?
So we will, last 5 years have been great for us post-COVID, and we have been consistently growing with an average growth rate of 12 to 13%. We would only like to improve it from here. And, as I mentioned, BEVs are doing very well for us. Another thing which has done great for us is the long wheelbase. Okay. And we would like to bring all our models in long wheelbase so that we can cater to that. Because in India, a lot of people use the rear seat, and we have a lot of chauffeur-driven cars. And hence, that fits in perfectly from a consumer need viewpoint. And as I said, we'll be expanding to these smaller markets. And of course, we need to bridge the gap between the mass premium and the luxury so that more and more people can move up the value chain and they start consuming our product. So this broadly will unlock India for us, so to say, and really looking forward to that journey.
And we wish you good luck with that kind of strategy and vision. On that note, appreciate you joining us this evening.
Thank you, Nivedna. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.